The first time I saw her, I froze. Not because she was beautiful, not because she was familiar, but because the truth hit me like a truck. I had been set up, tricked into a date I never agreed to, and the girl waiting for me outside the small cafe in downtown Atlanta had half of her face covered in burned scars that shimmered strangely in the sunlight. My friend had lied. Said she was perfect for me, said she was someone I'd never forget. I thought he meant it in a romantic way. I didn't realize he meant unforgettable in a way that would test the ugliest parts of my heart. If you believe kindness and second chances matter more than outward appearance, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us spread stories worth telling. Her name was Grace, and she stood there with a small, hopeful smile, shoulders curled inward as if she was used to people looking away. I wasn't prepared for the wave of discomfort, guilt, and confusion that washed over me, but I forced myself to step forward, to at least greet her. As we walked inside, I couldn't stop stealing glances at her scars, soft, raised patches stretching across her cheekbone, running toward her jaw. It looked painful, like a story permanently etched into her skin. I hated myself for staring, but I couldn't stop, and she noticed. Of course she did. People like her always notice. She spoke softly, as though every word was tested before leaving her mouth. She told me she loved books about resilience, that she volunteered at a children's burn foundation, that coffee shops reminded her of safety. I listened, but my mind kept drifting, wondering why my friend had done this to me. I wasn't a cruel person, but this felt like a trap, like I was being tested, and I didn't like the version of myself that was reacting so awkwardly to her presence. As we walked through Piedmont Park afterward, she paused by the lake, fingers twisting around each other, and suddenly said words that pierced straight through my chest. If you want to leave, it's okay. People do. There was no anger, no bitterness, just the weight of someone who had heard that too many times. I mumbled something about staying, but the truth was messy. I didn't want to be seen as shallow. I didn't want to hurt her. But I also didn't understand why I felt so conflicted. Over the next week, the guilt clung to me. My friend said he set us up because I needed someone real, someone who could teach me empathy. I hated him for treating her like a lesson, yet part of me couldn't stop thinking about her. About how she looked at the world with a gentleness I rarely saw, about how she carried a quiet strength beneath her timid smile. I reached out to her a few days later, not because I had romantic feelings, not because I felt pressured, but because something inside me refused to let the story end with my cowardice. We met again, this time at a small riverside trail just outside the city. The air smelled like wet earth and pine, and the afternoon sun spilled through the trees in soft golden rays. Grace walked slowly, her steps thoughtful, her presence calm. As the hours passed, she spoke about the accident that changed everything, the kitchen fire when she was 15, the surgery, the whispers at school, the way people's eyes always flickered first to her scars before landing anywhere else. She told the story without seeking pity, just honesty, a truth she had lived with for so long that it no longer broke her, but it still shaped her. That day, something shifted in me. The more she spoke, the less I saw her burns, and the more I saw her, a woman who had survived something unimaginably painful yet refused to let it turn her cold. A woman who loved deeply, who cared fiercely, who carried warmth despite the coldness she had endured. Weeks turned into months. Our conversations grew longer, our laughter easier, and the space between us more familiar. I realized that her scars weren't frightening anymore. They were simply a part of her, like freckles, dimples, or the curl of a smile. But deeper, more meaningful. They told a story not of tragedy, but of survival. And yes, there were moments I struggled with my own shallow instincts, moments when I caught myself comparing her to some imaginary standard of beauty I didn't even fully believe in. But every time, Grace would say something that made all of that feel small and foolish. She never tried to hide her scars. She never apologized for them. She lived openly, bravely, with a heart that refused to shrink. And in that courage, I found myself drawn in ways I never expected. The turning point came one rainy evening when we sat inside her car, windows fogged, raindrops racing down the glass. She looked straight at me and said the words that changed everything. Is appearance really that important? Her voice wasn't accusing. It was trembling, vulnerable, as if she was afraid of the answer. In that moment, my chest tightened. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I finally knew the truth about myself. Appearance had mattered too much for too long. And it had made my world small. Grace, with her scars and her softness, had widened something inside me. I reached for her hand, and when she didn't pull away, something inside me settled into place. I wasn't pretending anymore. I cared for her. Truly, deeply, honestly. Our relationship wasn't perfect. People stared sometimes. Some whispered. Some asked rude questions. But Grace held her chin high, and standing beside her, I learned to do the same. She taught me that love isn't found in flawless surfaces, but in the places where the world breaks us, and we choose to rise anyway. If this story touched something inside you, if it made you pause and think, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more stories that heal, inspire, and remind people to see deeper than the surface. Before the story ends, let me ask, would you have stayed on that first date? Comment below. Your honesty matters. Grace changed my life, not because she needed saving, but because she showed me what real beauty looks like. And in loving her, I learned to finally see